The winter of 1944 was a season carved in iron and silence. A time when the world was tearing itself apart and every night felt like the last. Deep inside the snow-covered forests of Eastern Europe, a story unfolded that history books never recorded. A story buried under fear, smoke, and secrets. It began with 4 ordinary German civilian women, Elise, Marta, Lena, and Greta women, who had no weapons, no training, and no political cause. All they had were their lives, their families, and the small hope that one day this brutal war might finally end. But war does not spare innocence. It devours it. One evening, while they were returning from gathering firewood near the ruined outskirts of their village, enemy soldiers ambushed them. Before they could even understand what was happening, lanterns surrounded them, rifles pressed against their backs, and hands tied with frozen rope that bit into their skin. The accusation was simple and deadly. You have been helping enemy soldiers. You are traitors. They cried, pleaded, tried to speak, tried to explain that they had done nothing, but their voices vanished into the cold wind. The soldiers dragged them through the snow for miles until they reached a structure hidden behind tall trees, wrapped in fog and silence. It looked like an abandoned metal warehouse, rusted and lifeless, but it wasn't abandoned. This was the Iron Barracks, a secret punishment camp where the walls echoed with misery and the floors had memorized the sound of suffering. The moment they entered, the iron doors slammed shut like the jaws of a beast swallowing its prey. Inside, the corridors were long and dim, lit only by a single flickering bulb that made every shadow look like a monster waiting to breathe. Cold metal benches, iron hooks on walls, broken windows that let in shards of icy wind. Everything inside looked like it had been built for punishment, not imprisonment. From the very first night, their nightmare began. They were ordered to stand outside in the freezing night for hours. Snow settled on their hair, eyelashes, and shoulders until they looked like statues carved from ice. Their feet grew numb, their fingers burned with cold, and their breaths came out in painful gasps. Guards shouted at them, accused them again and again, humiliated them, insulted them, stripped them of every shred of dignity they had left. The women tried to stay strong, but every night felt longer than the last. Inside the barracks, their iron cells were small and dark, barely enough space to sit. The concrete floor was colder than death itself, and the thin blankets felt like sheets of paper. Sleep came only in small moments, interrupted by screams echoing from distant rooms or the bang of metal doors being slammed shut. Morning arrived without warmth. It never felt like a new day, just a continuation of the previous night's torment. Every day, the guards forced them into harsh labor. They had to push heavy carts filled with coal across the frozen yard, chop ice with bare hands, scrub iron floors until their skin cracked and bled, and carry wooden crates heavier than their bodies. Their backs ached, knees trembled, and shoulders shook, but they kept going because stopping meant punishment. The worst part was not the cold or the work. It was the silence. The silence that existed between the women when they were too tired to speak. The silence that echoed inside their hearts when hope began to fade. The silence that made them question if anyone even knew where they were. Still, the 4 women held on to each other. When Elise broke down one night, Lena hugged her shivering body. When Marta fainted during labor, Greta lifted her and whispered, "Don't let them break you." Their friendship became their last shield. Without it, they would have disappeared into the darkness long ago. After months of unrecorded suffering, something changed. Rumors spread that enemy forces were losing ground. Artillery fire echoed closer each night. The guards became restless, angry, and frightened, fearful that their secret camp might soon be discovered. And then one night, everything shattered. Explosions thundered in the distance. The ground trembled. Searchlights flickered and died. Alarms blared through the Iron Barracks. In the chaos, a guard dropped his ring of cell keys, and Greta, gathering the last of her strength, grabbed them before he noticed. With shivering hands, she unlocked her cell, then the others, and for the first time in months, the 4 women ran freely through the freezing corridors. Snowstorm winds slapped their faces as they pushed open the main gate. Behind them, gunfire erupted inside the camp. Ahead of them lay endless darkness, but even that darkness felt kinder than the Iron Barracks. They didn't know where they were running. They didn't know if they would live. They didn't know if the world outside was safe, but they were free. And freedom, even half frozen and half broken, tasted sweeter than anything they had ever known. Hours later, as dawn painted the sky with pale gold, passing soldiers found them collapsed near the forest. They were taken to safety, wrapped in warm blankets, given water and bread. When asked who they were and where they came from, the women had only one answer: "We came from a place made of iron and pain." The Iron Barracks vanished after the war, erased by governments and swallowed by nature. But the story of those 4 German civilian women, Elise, Marta, Lena, and Greta, remains a haunting reminder of how cruelty is born not from war alone, but from the prisons humans build inside their hearts.